Hey 12s, it's the Seahawks Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week, breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Seahawks Squad Show. My name is Chris Crawford. I'm hosting for Anders Hurst. Anders is getting a little bit of deserved time off. That guy works pretty hard, even though I'll never admit it to his face that he works hard. But I will say, since he's probably not watching right now, he's getting ready to watch a certain third baseman for the Seattle Mariners, hopefully hit some dingers. But happy to host. Welcome to the Seahawks Squad Show. As I said, my name is Chris Crawford. I'm joined by Rob Rang, and I'm joined by former Seattle Seahawk and wonderful podcast guest, Robert Turbin. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great.
Great.
Excited for some Hall of Fame game.
Excited for some Hall of Fame game for sure. So today's show's kind of jam-packed. We're going to talk about, of course, the John Schneider extension, how much it matters. We'll get a little nostalgic, take a look at maybe the very best of John Schneider, maybe the not so best of John Schneider, how much that extension means. There's also some offensive line news, and unfortunately, it's not great news. Charles Cross, unfortunately, undergoing surgery, and a not so great report from some people I talked to about the interior offensive line, maybe a little bit of issues snapping the football. I also want to talk about this game coming up, the first preseason game of the year. And I completely just put it out of my head that the Seattle Seahawks are going to be playing against the Las Vegas Raiders and Geno Smith and Pete Carroll to open the year. Just what we can make from that type of game, who's important for that game, and maybe the nostalgia factor. And then I'm going to ask these guys, it's going to be a little bit of a surprise, but there was some news that broke not long before we started recording. But let's start with John Schneider. Schneider signing that contract extension. And Robert, I'm going to start with you. Just how big is it as a former player, as a guy who knows the ins and outs of this stuff? How big is it to know that the guy who's in charge of making that decisions is locked up long-term?
It's great. It's huge, especially like if you've been able to develop a relationship, with that person. It's interesting too, because most guys, when they come into the league, when you're a young player, I don't think you realize how much of a relationship you can establish with people in the front office. There's this feeling, or there's this view that it's like separated. You got front office, locker room, but it's actually more integrated than we understand when we first get into the league. And then obviously as you get older, you understand like, man, there's an open door policy, you might be on a text type of relationship, which I am with John Schneider, very grateful to be able to do that. But, in terms of like, okay, your personal situation with the team, whether it be contractually or whatever, you can get some of that honest conversation going in terms of, when you got a guy that, when you don't got a guy that, then you're just questioning, you end up like, what's going to happen? Am I going to get cut? How do these people feel about me? And so that's natural for a player when there's no relationship there. So the fact that he got the extension, guys that are there that's used to him, know how things are ran by him, it's a good thing.
Well, let me jump in there real quick just to follow up on that. Robert, you've of course been in the league for a long time. You have some experience with lots of different team executives. Is it unique the way that John Schneider approaches things? I mean, my experiences with him is he is a salt of the earth, just as nice of a guy as you possibly can be. And not every NFL executive I've hung out with has had that same type of a relationship with the players, with coaches, with fans, with members of the media. I mean, he is just an easygoing kind of a guy. Are all executives in your experience as developing that type of a interpersonal relationship with players, or is John Schneider a little unique in that regard?
I don't know if it's unique, but it's not common.
Yeah.
I would say that you probably get a 50-50 split. You get half of the general managers and front office personnel who are open to establishing relationship with their players, and you get the other half who aren't. Trent Baalke, who used to be the general manager for the 49ers, Jaguars, I was never under his leadership, but the word on the street is, hey, guy wasn't cool like that. When I played in Indianapolis, okay, I have personally, I have a really good relationship with Ryan Grigson, okay, but in Indy, when I was there and he was general manager, it was very weird because in Seattle, it's like you see a scout walking by, you see anybody walking by, you say, hey, how you doing? You have a conversation. It was like normal. In Indy, I can walk by somebody in the hallway. It might be a scout, and this wasn't Chris Ballard. This was before Chris Ballard. This is Ryan Grigson. I might walk by a scout or something and say hi, and they'll walk right past you with their head down.
Ooh.
Like, what? Like, okay, you're new, you know what? So at the end of the year, I remember at the end of that season, and that's just like how teams, operate their system differently. At the end of that season, I'm in an exit meeting with one of the scouts, and I asked him, I said, hey, why is it that, because I was curious, I was like, it was so obvious that I had, like, at the end of the year, I had to ask the question, like, hey, why is it that when I actually say, you can hear my voice and you just ignore me? Why are you guys doing that? And he said, Ryan Grigson, his philosophy is he doesn't want to establish relationship with his players because it makes it easier when the day comes that you have to make a hard decision, cut or trade a guy. I'm like, wow, so it doesn't make him good or bad. It just makes him different. That's his way. John, completely opposite, completely different than that. Chris Ballard is the same. So it just depends on where you go. Obviously, I would lean towards a relationship factor every day of the week.
Rob, how much easier is John Schneider's job when he has this type of job security?
I think it's a lot easier. I think as Turbo just kind of mentioned, I think that it's kind of comforting to a player to know that there is a plan in place, that there is just some continuity. I think that it's going to be appealing to veteran free agents to know, again, that there is stable leadership. I look at some of the other clubs throughout the NFL that have just constant turnover in the front office or in the coaching staff. And it's not at all surprising to me when we get to free agency that they don't usually get any of the big fish unless they're going to severely overpay for those kind of a guys, let's just kind of talk about the elephant in the room here. I mean, like when we talk about like John Schneider and the fact that Seattle has struggled for a long time here and John Schneider has not, to kind of create that consistency along the offensive line. And there's been a lot of talk out there that maybe the Seahawks do have to dangle more dollars out there to try to build up that, the fortification of the offensive line. It's not a place that necessarily has a great history of good offensive line play. And so maybe some offensive linemen would be a little bit more hesitant to come to Seattle. So I do think that it makes his job easier. I think it's just at least in my opinion, my perspective, it's the right way of treating people just in general, whether it be a player, whether it be a coach, whether it be fans, whether it be the cafeteria stuff. I love that. Like John in his press conference thanked people at all the different floors of the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, including the cafeteria staff. I mean, who thinks to do that? But if you are just a good person in your heart that you want to have develop those relationships, I definitely understand Turbin's point about just that it can be easier if you possibly have to cut ties with somebody. But at the same time, I also think that if you are really going to believe in that 12 as one type of a mentality and really being a team, a cohesive unit, then I think that it is better to treat every person in there as if they are truly an equal.
I think the interesting thing here too is it's interesting that on a day after Jerry DiPoto, who I think gets compared a lot to John Schneider because he's been here as long as Schneider has, but very different levels of success, if we're just being honest. One guy's won a Super Bowl and been to it. One guy has been to one postseason, but one of their criticisms sometimes has been stubbornness, like a commitment to doing things a certain way. But I feel like, and Rob, I'll ask you to answer this and then have Turbo go. I feel like he's gotten less stubborn in terms of how he evaluates things as he's gotten more into his Seahawk tenure. Is that a fair assessment?
Are you asking me?
I was asking Rob, but I think he might have we may have had an internet connection. But I'll ask you, Turbo. Do you think he has gotten is the stubborn generalization that Schneider gets a fair one? And do you think he has gotten less stubborn as he has gone on?
Well, I don't think it is fair.
Okay.
It's not fair because, first of all, so there's a difference between having an opinion about someone like John Schneider and his decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's having an opinion about John Schneider from a personality standpoint. So when you ask about stubbornness,
right,
you're asking about personality. I've never felt like he was like a stubborn person.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who say he is, my question would be, have you ever had lunch with John Schneider? Have you ever had a conversation with him in the grocery store? Have you ever met him at all in your life? Because if not, I'll tell you what's not fair. The assumption or the non-assumption that he is or is not a stubborn person. So that answers then the second question as well.
Right.
In terms of, but I think there's always growth with everybody in their positions as long as they're doing it right. John Schneider is someone to me who's done it right. And I think there's clearly been growth in, how he's sort of developed in his role as a general manager.
Fair. Rob, would you agree with that?
I absolutely would. I think that it's really easy to, especially if you don't have your face out there, you don't have your name out there in this era of social media where people hide behind kind of catchy phrases and things as far as their handles, to just be critical, to call into sports radio and, hey, this is Rob and Tenino calling and I feel this way. But there's some anonymity there, and people will throw those stones, not recognizing that we all kind of live in those glass houses. And so to Turbo's point here, if you haven't had an actual conversation with a John Schneider or a Jerry DePoto or anybody else for that matter, then I really think that it is difficult to use words like stubborn to describe someone's personality. As opposed to maybe if you question why they made this move or that move, then I think that, sure, we all can watch football and evaluate people and fair or you're accurate or not. I do think it is fair to question football decisions, but I also think that you have to be careful if you're going to be questioning a player's effort, or if you're going to be questioning the type of, just the heart, the passion behind some of the decisions that a general manager like John Schneider, who is, as you just said, Chris, already has a Super Bowl trophy, went to a couple of them, and it was critical in the development of those teams that got there.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And by stubborn, I don't mean honestly a mentality. I think the question marks have been willing to invest in the offensive line, how much he has put into different positions more than others. But I think I have seen, and it's much more compliment than insult to his past, I have seen Schneider grow in terms of maybe being more willing to place different parts of his development into different parts of the team for the better. Like we saw, I think, drafting Gray Zabel, I think, was a sign that, they are willing to go after a bigger time offensive lineman. They're willing to invest in this position. It's been frustrating at times when they haven't, but I do think that I have seen growth in that regard. All right, let's go nostalgic a little bit. And I'm going to eliminate one transaction. Okay, Turbo, we cannot say that his best transaction was round 4, pick 106 of the 2012 NFL draft. Sorry, we're not allowed to do that one. But if you were to pick one transaction that really stands out in John Schneider's tenure, and I'll have Rob, you start this one. What's that one transaction that John Schneider has made that really stands out to you?
On a positive side?
I kind of
positive side,
thinking about this for a moment, and kind of had like a top 5 list in my mind. So I'm going to jump in here with my number 5 and then kind of work my way down to the kind of continue the conversation. And look, to your point, Chris, when it comes to like the stubbornness of John Schneider, I just think that he comes from a cloth of that. You got to make the splashy move, and offensive linemen aren't often considered the splashy move. I mean, think about some of the big trades that he has made for better or for worse. So to me, as we have this conversation, we'll kind of talk about this a little bit. But to me, one of the top 5 moves that John Schneider made is, I think, the free agent acquisition of Julian Love. I think that you can make that is one that is absolutely important to the team now. I think you can make an argument that the trade for Quandre Diggs, if we're going to stay at the safety position, was absolute fleecing of the Detroit Lions. Just to kind of give a tip of the cap to Turbo, who acknowledged the fact that today is the Hall of Fame game and an unofficial start to I guess it's the official start to the NFL season. But again, I think that those are a couple of moves here that immediately jump out that aren't often talked about, but that the Seahawks were able to acquire a Pro Bowl caliber safety. And because they don't play near the line of scrimmage, then they don't often get as much attention as maybe some other players that often are talked about in free agent or draft acquisitions.
Love it. I love it. How about you, Turbo? Is there something that really stands out to you?
Man, let me tell you something. When we traded for, or when John, because I didn't do anything. When it's speaking of the Detroit Lions, but I don't know why my mind's going blank now. But when we traded for Cliff Averill, I was like, damn. Oh my, Cliff. Hey, when we got Cliff Averill, how about Percy Harvin for a first round pick?
Yeah.
Yo, that put us over the top. First of all, Cliff Averill was a dominating force as a defensive end before he came to Seattle, and only added to a defensive line that was already pretty good. I'm like, man, we got Cliff. How do we do that? We didn't really give up anybody. You look around the locker room. Same thing with Percy. Just a playmaker all the way around, wide receiver in the slot, running the football, kickoff return, whatever. And first round pick, that's pretty. That's expensive, but it was worth it. Because we got a title out of it. So those are 2 moves to me that really stick out, and obviously the 2012 draft. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah,
that's why I tried. Was graded an F.
Yeah.
Let's go.
My gosh.
Okay, let's
shout out to that Bleacher Reporter writer, man. I hope he's having a good day. But man, oh man, that'll be one that sticks with him. Just for me, the trade up for Tyler Lockett is still like, that's the move that I always, because I was such a huge fan of Tyler Lockett at Kansas State and knew he was so much more than just a punt returner, right? That was the label on Tyler Lockett. He's going to be a punt returner, right? Well, clearly he was a heck of a lot more than a punt returner. And that is just such a great example, and they trade up for DK Metcalf as well. Like, those 2 trade ups, I think, are such a great job of recognizing not just helping need, but helping fill need with like elite football players. And Tyler Lockett is one of my all-time favorites. Going to be weird seeing him play in Tennessee this year, but definitely those are the ones that stand out to me. All right. We've got to talk about some negative stuff. Unfortunately, we got to talk about the Charles Cross injury. We have to talk about a not so great day from the interior of the offensive line, but we're going to take a quick commercial break before we get into all of that. And today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it on with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy drink. Let's be honest, some days on the golf course, on or off it, you need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best part of your clubhouse to go without chasing down the bev cart. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, then hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off of your order. The offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get this energizing boost you need to power through. Order Transfusion flavored 5-hour energy today. All right. So, not a great day for the Seahawks offensive line, and in particular, Charles Cross. It came out today that he undergoes surgery to repair a dislocated finger. The good news is he is expected to be ready for week 1 for the season opener against the 49ers. Turbo, how much concern do you have in an injury like this?
Not a lot. It's not a serious injury. You know, he'll be back for week 1. He'll be back for practice and preparation for week 1. Obviously, it sucks a little bit because, you know, you'll miss some practice time. And so there's some getting in shape that's going to have to happen because nothing gets you in shape for football except playing football. But it's not a lower body injury. So he'll still be able to run and do all those things while he's rehabbing. So not a big concern for me.
Rob?
Well, I'll jump in there real quick because I'm actually going to push back on this a little bit. I don't have a lot of concern about Charles Cross. As Turbo just mentioned, it's not a lower leg injury. It's not a back. You do feel confident. Mike McDonald said as much that they very much expect that Charles Cross is going to be back at the left tackle position in plenty of time for the week 1 opener against the division rival San Francisco 49ers. However, that week 1 divisional opponent, San Francisco 49ers, not only have Nick Bosa coming off of one end, but on the other side, they have their first round pick, Mykel Williams, and he is a physically very, very gifted player that I think is going to give Seattle some issues. Charles Cross is a terrific player, but one of the things that I have had some concerns about going back to his tape at Mississippi State was just bull rushes and power, and that is Mykel Williams in a nutshell. So I do have some concerns about that, and frankly, I have some concerns about the ability of Josh Jones, of Mike Jarrell, who are going to be replacing Charles Cross in these preseason games to make sure that Sam Darnold and Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe all stay healthy themselves. So I think there's a trickle effect here that is a little bit concerning. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, is it, terrified? No. But at the same time, I do think that this is more than just the dislocated right ring finger on his right hand that a lot of people are making this out to be. This can be catastrophic if there is an injury to the starting quarterback that you are basically betting your entire season on.
If you had to start one of those two today, Rob, would you feel more comfortable with Josh Jones or Jarrell playing left tackle for the Seahawks?
I'm sorry, if you can repeat that one more time.
If you had to play one of those two today, Josh Jones or Michael Jarrell, which one would you feel the more comfortable protecting Sam Darnold's blind side?
Yeah, I personally, for me, it would be Josh Jones, even though there's a relative lack of familiarity, and he's only, of course, been in the Seahawks for a couple of weeks on the field, and Mike Jarrell is in year 2, even though it's a completely different coaching staff. Still, I just think that the veteran that is Josh Jones, when you consider the fact that he started, I believe it's 30 games or so, he's been active for more like 70 or 80 since he was drafted at University of Houston. He was a 4-year starter, mostly at that left tackle position in college. I think it was actually all of his college career. So there's just a little bit more familiarity, whereas Mike Jarrell, of course, last year with the Seahawks, he started the 3 games, but they were all at that right tackle position. I love Jarrell's upside. I think he could wind up becoming a better player. I was encouraged by the fact that, when I was actually at training camp, Jarrell was getting second team reps at left tackle. Jones was at right tackle. So I am excited about Mike Jarrell's upside, but right now, to answer your question, Chris, it would be Josh Jones for me.
Turbo, as a running back, when you have backup offensive linemen, like how much concern do you have, right? Like how big is it to build the trust with these guys right now? Who's blocking and, protecting the blind side, obviously big thing there, but also, the left tackle's pushing those defensive linemen, hoping to open up some holes. Pretty important to be building that trust now. Yeah.
No, I mean the trust factor, yes, but
sure.
Like as far as concern, we don't care.
Yeah,
running backs,
interesting.
We don't. My job is to make whoever's in the game. My job is to make them better. That's what we do. We run the football. Let the instincts take over.
Sure,
it doesn't matter. Like for us as runners, it's like, okay, I got a backup tackle in the game. Cool. Let's go. Let's ride. I'm gonna make you better. Like that's the mindset for a back. I mean, like we don't really, obviously like the chemistry and all that kind of stuff is there. It's more so important from a pass protection standpoint than it is actually running the football. But at the end of the day, like we really don't care that much. We want to run the ball either way. We want to run the ball. So that's our mindset as running backs. At least, the good ones that I've been around, and the mentality is, if I got a second or third string guy in the game, then my job as the starter or the back in the game is I'm gonna make him better.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, that's certainly, not something you really think about, right? Like that's why you're the professional football player and I'm the guy just asking these questions here. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Some reports today about the interior offensive line struggling, and in particular with snaps. Rob, how concerning is it? Like, I understand that this is, it's not even August 1st, but like this was a position that the Seahawks kind of struggled with a little bit last year. How concerning is the center position to you?
Yeah, to me, it's not nearly as concerning as the Charles Cross injury, just because, again, the ripple effects, as I talked about before, the possible injuries of somebody else. I'm a big believer in Oluwatimi. I think that the fact this is the Remington Award winner. This is a guy who does have some NFL starts under his belt. Look, one bad snap, that's all that I've heard and seen myself. From him is not that concerning. Now, Christian Haynes, on the other hand, it is a little bit more concerning just because this was multiple snaps and actually got him pulled off of the field by the coaching staff. And so that is concerning. But again, you have to have, take a grain of salt here. This is a guy that didn't play center. At least not in a game during his rookie season in the NFL and then at the University of UConn. So I think you have to have a little bit of patience with him. And frankly, I'm very optimistic about the talent that Seattle has along the offensive line. I'm intrigued by Jalen Sundell. I'm intrigued by Federico Morenges, and very much a fan of the just the quality and the consistency of the coaching staff along the offensive line with John Benton and Rick Dennison in particular. I just think that you're talking about 49 years of combined NFL coaching experience. I think that is all the reason to believe that the Seahawks offensive line struggles are going to be quick and they're going to be vastly improved from a year ago.
Turbo,
I disagree with this 100%. I'm sorry, Chris.
Please go ahead.
Wait, go ahead. My bad.
No. The only thing I was going to ask you was just like, when you have a bad practice, right? When you have a day that's not at your best, how badly do you want to get back out there that next day? Like, how important is it to get back out there that next day?
Oh, man, you can't wait. The next day can't come fast enough. You get through the film, you don't even want to watch it. And you're just trying to get back to the hotel, let the night, do your body recovery stuff, let the night go by and let's go next day. Okay. Yeah. But you mentioned, Rob, that you're less concerned about the interior offensive line and more concerned about Charles Cross injury is not serious. Yeah. Okay. And the thing is, it's like, all right, so Josh Jones is going to play. This is good. This is good reps. You already know who your starter is going to be at left tackle. Let these other guys get some reps, see what you have. So maybe if you don't feel like you have anybody that's good enough right now in terms of that left tackle position, in terms of the depth, maybe you go out and get something. You can't do anything. You can't snap the ball. You can't even get the play started. And the center position has never been quite right since Max Unger. Okay? That's the truth. All right? Justin Britt came and did a pretty decent job, but he also had to move from guard to center. Okay? So now we got Oluwatimi, who's got I think I pronounced his last name right. That's why we just call him Olu, for crying out loud. Yes. Okay. And the truth of the matter is he's been inconsistent. Let's call it what it is. Okay. There's been inconsistency at center with him, with anybody at that spot right now. Then you get Christian Haynes, who's a guard, trying to play center. And to not be as concerned about that than a left tackle, I don't know if I can agree with that. If you can't get the snap off, How are we supposed to play offense? We talk about the run game and Jackson Smith, and there's nothing, none of that matters.
Right.
if you can't get the snap, if you don't have depth at center, we still got to use a guard to play center right now.
Right.
That's a problem. Okay. So I think that's a big concern in terms of that. Now, in terms of the defense having a better day, that's just going to happen. We all know that. That's training camp.
That's fair.
But man, to still have this conversation about snaps, and we were talking about this 2-3 seasons ago. So, hey, I don't know. I feel like that's something that definitely has got to get addressed immediately.
At the very least, you just want to hear better reports the next few days, right? Like you want to say, oh, it was just a bad day, because there were good reports from Haynes snapping on Tuesday as well. So that's worth pointing out. So here's hoping that it's just, the yips is not maybe the right term for it, but you hope that that's just one bad day, right? Like just one day where you work on some technique stuff and it all gets better. But it's definitely something that I'm going to be following over the next few weeks for sure. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming preseason game. The Seahawks taking on those Las Vegas Raiders, who there's a few guys associated with that organization that you just might have heard of, but we're going to take a very quick commercial break before we do that. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. If you've ever wished managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can transition all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. It's the fact that you can do it all in one, right? You don't have to have a bunch of windows open in your phone. You don't have to be scrolling through to find your different bank accounts. Monarch Money makes it easy. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first order. All right. So preseason football. Love it. Excited for it. Can't wait for it. Real quick, Turbo, do you wish you could have played the 3 games? Do you wish that was something that you could have done?
3 over 4?
Yeah.
Nah.
Nah?
No, I thought the 4-game system was solid.
Yeah. What about it did you like about it?
It was balanced. You got good balance. The first week was like, I don't know, maybe kicking the rust off. The second week, you got the juices flowing just a little bit more. Might play till mid-second quarter. Talking about 1s and 2s. Maybe the first half. Then that third game, it was like, all right, let's really rev up the engine, get the starters in there, 1s and 2s going into the third quarter, coming out of the half, right? You get that routine. And then the fourth quarter was all about guys. I mean, I can't tell you how many guys made the team because of week 4 preseason.
Yeah.
It was all about those guys, undrafted, 3rd, 4th string guys fighting. Some beat out the 2nd string guys because of that 4th game, Yeah. Now there's an imbalance. You can't, it's like, when do you play the starters? How long do you play them for? It's a weird deal, man. So I personally was good with the 4-game preseason.
And I'm going to guess a big hell no to the 218 that has been proposed by the NFL as well, that would not be something that you would be interested in, 2 preseason, 18 full season games.
Oh yeah. Come on. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You gotta, evolution is it's inevitable, right? Change. Yeah. You just gotta accept it, So I mean, listen, when we grew up playing football, you had one scrimmage and then it was the season.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's the same way in college, kind of sort of, except you're scrimmaging against yourselves.
Right.
Then you play the season, So it's all good. It is what it is.
It is what it is a good way to put it. Okay. So Thursday, August 7th, the Las Vegas Raiders will be taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Rob, I think this is kind of a fascinating first preseason game, right? Like, It would have been an interesting one anyway, because you'd be curious to see how long the new quarterback is going to be playing, how long, if you're even going to see Ashton Genty in this game, right? How is that all going to bounce out, who the Seahawks are going to play and all that stuff. But then when you add in the fact that the starting quarterback, who we'll see if he plays on Thursday or not, maybe just a series or two, and the team is going to be coached by the guy who coached the Seattle Seahawks for an awful long time. How much intrigue do you have for this?
Oh, much more than normal. And I love preseason games. Like Turbo just kind of mentioned, I think from a player perspective, you want more preseason opportunities for everybody to go out there and earn that job, really kind of separate the cream from the crop, kind of a thing. From a talent evaluation perspective, same kind of thing. I mean, the more preseason action, the better. But just the drama that is Pete Carroll's return to Lumen Field. I mean, my goodness, when they announce people, when they put his face on the jumbo screen, is he going to get more of applause than Mike McDonald does? I think that's fascinating. I think the same thing with Geno Smith in contrasting with Sam Darnold. So I think that's going to make things interesting. The fact that everybody's going to focus in on Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. What about Jamal Adams and his return? Because Jamal Adams is now a member of the Las Vegas Raiders. And, of course, he didn't have as much success with the Seahawks as was expected. And that was one of the, the offseason or the misfires of the John Schneider era that I was going to reference before here. Again, to me, this is the beginning of the NFL season always from a preseason perspective is fascinating to me from a scouting perspective. But at least in my opinion, Turbo, I can't remember a preseason game that I am more eagerly looking forward to than this one.
I can. When I was with the Colts in 2000, 16 or 17, we came back to Seattle to play in the preseason game. Yeah, I couldn't wait for that one. Because I should have still probably been a Seahawk at that time. Okay, but it didn't work out that way. No, these games are exciting. Anytime you get to play your old team, I had an opportunity to do that. I think we won that game. I got into the end zone. It feels good, man. It feels good. It's not necessarily about revenge, but it's, it's just like, it's like playing your best friend in a one-on-one basketball game or something like that, and then when the game's over, you go get ice cream or whatever it is. I don't know. And so, so that's kind of probably how this feels, because there's no like beef. It's not like Pete left with, like a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Same with Geno. Or even Jamal for that matter. I think there's going to be love all the way around, and it's going to be like, hey, man, Vegas Raiders come back, play one of our good friends in a battle, and then, we'll go get ice cream after, when the game's over, okay? Or in that case, maybe a glass of bourbon for the grown-ups,
For the grown folk. I wish it was a regular season game, really.
Right. I mean, think about that now, when it's really on the line, but it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting for those guys.
So I'll just steal. I think the most intriguing thing other than about the opponent is going to be just kind of that third running back battle, like who plays the best between Damian Martinez, George Halani, a couple of the undrafted rookies, DK Kaufman, who will be taking his first ever snaps as a running back, I believe, because it was a guy who played safety in college. That's kind of the most intriguing thing for me. Rob, what's the most intriguing in terms of what players really need to step up, for lack of a better term, in this first preseason game?
Well, based on the conversation we had before, I think certainly at the center spot. And again, I do have some confidence in that. So I'm going to kind of switch back over to that left tackle position. And I would argue the right tackle position still with Abe Lucas coming off of injury. You want to see him play up to his talent level and what he has put on the field in the past. So whether it be Josh Jones, whether it be Mike Jarrell, I think the left tackle position is very important. And so that is going to be one of the things I definitely focus in on. I think the fact that it is Geno Smith, whether he actually plays or not, if Sam Darnold does get onto the field, then I think that there's some pressure on him. There's an awful lot of expectations out there about Sam Darnold, an awful lot of critics. So I think that, that's probably as low hanging fruit as you could possibly get. Obviously, all those undrafted free agents out there, the guys who are on the bubble, the wide receiver position to me is fascinating once you get past, the big 3 or 4. Is a Cody White going to be able to make a big play? Is a Tariq Young going to be able to make a big play? Those types of guys. I think, again, from the preseason perspective, this is as fascinating of a matchup as I think you're ever going to see. And I just can't wait to see it all unfold. Anything
you're paying close attention to, Turbo?
Yeah, for me, it's a combination of 3 things offensively. Okay. If Sam Darnold doesn't play and Jalen Murrow does, very interested to see him play. But then it's not just about him, but I'm also, intrigued about schematically, Clint Kubiak now. This is going to be his first time in game action, with this personnel. What is it going to look like? Obviously, it's probably going to be pretty basic to start, but still, I'm interested to see the formations and the motions and all the things that go into, calling an offensive scheme. And then if Robbie Oots is playing, I want to see what, like, within the offense too, like, can he catch the ball in the flat? Like, what sort of different things can he do? Is he physical at the point of attack? So those 3 things really offensively, I'm really intrigued. No, it's just the beginning, but I'm really intrigued to see, how those things kind of play itself out in that first matchup.
When you have to respect a fullback in the backfield, and we've talked about how he's your eyes. We talk about how that's that guy who is also just going to give you that extra comfort. But does it make it easier in the backfield when and this is probably an obvious question, but does it make it easier in the backfield when you have to pay a little bit of attention to that fullback when he comes out on the flat, he's running past? Yeah.
What? Oh, man. I mean, because how many times have we seen, teams rarely use fullbacks these days, but you think about Juszczyk in San Francisco, and even when we have Michael Robinson, these guys sneak out into the flat, they're wide open.
Yeah,
there it is, a 2-yard catch that turns into a 12-yard gain just because you're so focused on the running back,
sure.
And that play action. And sometimes they start over here and we got to play action this, but here they come this way to get into the flat. So you get that cross action going on, and it just throws off the linebackers, whoever's manned up on this guy. They get lost in the sauce a little bit in coverage. It opens up a lot. There's a lot of opportunities there with the fullback.
So we will definitely be breaking down this game as well. We will have be live after every Seattle Seahawks game, and we will be live after every preseason game. So I think there's going to be a lot to talk about, and that's fun, right? It's fun that there's going to be a lot to talk about, even over just the 3 preseason games. Obviously, it'll be a lot different when we get into the games that actually count in the standings, but I am looking forward to it. This is as much as I've looked forward to preseason football in a very long time. All right. For our last segment, I'm going to play Nostradamus Chris a little bit, but I'm going to ask these guys if the Seattle Seahawks should be interested in a player who demanded a trade today. But first, a very quick commercial break. Okay. Terry McLaurin demands a trade from the Washington Commanders today. I think we all know that demanding trades isn't necessarily always what that means. It more means give me my money or find somewhere else for me to play. Seattle Seahawks wide receiver room has been one that's been talked about an awful lot. You have Jackson Smith-Njigba. You have Cooper Kupp. You sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You have Jake Bobo, who apparently has been making plays as he usually does in preseason, and then unfortunately doesn't quite get the time. But you also have Tony Horton, who is one of my all-time favorites, Ricky White. I'll start with you, Turbo. Should the Seahawks explore a trade for scary Terry McLaurin?
Hell no. Okay, all caps. All right, this is no. All right, because what are you gonna have to give up to get him? You already said at wide receiver, man. You went and got Cooper Kupp. You're paying him good money. You got MVS, man. He's a downfield threat. You got nice balance in the room, man. You don't need he's not a diva. All right. So, and I don't really know Terry like that.
Sure.
But you don't need a big time wide receiver added to a room that has a guy who's been a triple threat receiver before, Cooper Kupp. You got a guy in Jack Smith-Njigba who's not doing nothing but growing. You get a guy like Terry, that might stunt his growth. Then what are you going to do with Cooper? And so to me, I just think there's not an offer that the Seahawks can make in my mind that for them to be able to get a Terry McLaurin, and he's going to be super expensive. He's trying to get a contract, for crying out loud.
Right.
Seahawks don't got time for that, man. So no.
Rob?
Well, I think you at least kick the tires and see what's going on. I mean, there's obviously a lot of connections with Washington, Dan Quinn, the Scott Fitterer is in that scouting office, and that is a scout. Turbo, Fitterer, I'm sure. As far as just one of the things we talked about in the opening of the show is John Schneider's long tenure with the Seahawks, and he's developed so many relationships with so many people. So I think you at least kick the tires. But Turbo, I think you make an excellent point. I think you're studying JSN's development. I think that Marquez Valdes-Scantling, at least from my perspective, has been one of the pleasant surprises so far. He has not just been that vertical receiver that I was kind of stereotyping him as. I've been really intrigued with how they've used him out of the slot. He's running dig routes and crossing patterns rather than just the straight fly routes that I saw most of his career. And so, again, I think that you have a chance to disrupt whatever momentum that you are creating with your receiving core and your all basically brand new quarterbacks, with all due respect to Drew Lock. So, yeah, I think that kick the tires and see what's going on. But at the same time, realistically, I don't think that the Seahawks are going to be a realistic trade partner for Terry McLaurin, who I think is a terrific player. I just don't know that he has that straight line speed that I think could add a big play element to the Seahawks. They already have, in my opinion, similarly gifted players that you've already invested in, that already know the offense. I think that you're mortgaging the long-term future for short-term success and media attention, fan excitement. And I just don't think that you have to do that for a team that I think is already poised for a deep playoff run.
So, the thing that when I first saw it, I have to admit I was intrigued, right? Because Terry McLaurin, I think, is a really good football player. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for the job that he did in helping Jalen Daniels last year. Now, Jalen Daniels is a fantastic quarterback, but don't get it twisted. But I still do think that his playmaking was certainly a big help. But I was just looking earlier this week, Denver signed Cortland Sutton to a 4-year, $92 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. Terry McLaurin's going to get more than that, right? You'd have to think that Terry McLaurin is getting more than Cortland Sutton. And you take a look at the extensions for T. Higgins, 4 years, $115 million with $40.9 million guaranteed. DK Metcalf, 4 years, $132 million, $60 million guaranteed. And Garrett Wilson, 4 years, $130 million, $90 million guaranteed. Now, McLaurin's not getting that, right? That's not going to be in that ilk, in my humble estimation. But this is a cap sport. I want these guys to get their paper, but you have to also be responsible, right? And you need to have guys who are, reasonable within the cap. You don't want to have a situation where you have to make moves in order to pay these guys, especially when I just think Jackson Smith-Njigba is a number one wide receiver. I don't think the Seahawks need another number one wide receiver. I argue a little bit about whether or not they're okay from 3 to 5, but I feel pretty good about that at number one. So here's my Nostradamus, Chris, by the way. I think that Terry McLaurin is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I think he's going to be that complementary piece to DK Metcalf, and we'll find out how much they like playing with Aaron Rodgers. It may go really well. I think it might go a different way, but I think he might make sense for that thing. But I do think it's interesting. Anytime you get a trade request at this point of the year, right? We talked about releasing Noah Fant when the Seahawks did, and that's pretty odd. Trade request at the very end of July, Turbo. You don't typically see a ton of that, do you?
Well, I think it's more common than maybe we give it credit for. I mean, guys hold out, they don't get their deal. All right, well, send me somewhere that I can get a deal. Sure. But I do think that McLaurin is going to end up staying with the Commanders.
Okay,
they need him. They don't have another number one wide receiver on their roster. He's probably their best route runner, in terms of what their roster supposedly looks with him, on their roster. So I think he'll be a Commander. And Guys, this is pretty common. Guys hold out in training camp,
Sure.
and oftentimes they'll request a trade if they don't get their contract.
Is there any ill will when your teammate, if you have somebody hold out in that, or is it just you understand that this is part of the business?
Oh yeah, you understand that it's part of the business. Yeah, no doubt about it. There's no ill will. Everybody's situation is different. Obviously, as a teammate, you want them on the field, you want them on the team. If there's any ill will, it's probably with the organization.
Sure.
What y'all doing up there?
Right.
Hey, I thought we were supposed to change the culture here in Washington.
Sure.
We just came off a really good season. We need our guy.
Absolutely.
Without Terry McLaurin, the Commanders take a clear step back. I don't think there's any doubt that they take a step. They become the third or fourth best team in their division without Terry McLaurin. Easily.
Rob, is there anywhere in the NFC West that could make sense for McLaurin? Like taking just, this is off the top of the cuff, but like, is there anywhere in the NFC West that would make sense? I can't really see that landing spot.
Yeah, I have a hard time envisioning that type of a scenario. I have to agree with Turbo. We didn't see the offensive line quite eye to eye, but we do definitely see this. I think it's most likely that Terry McLaurin winds up coming to some type of a contract agreement with Washington. I think that he's kind of got him bent over a barrel a little bit because, the Commanders did have such a fantastic year a season ago. There is so much excitement about Jaden Daniels, and I think McLaurin is a terrific football player, deserves to get paid. And I don't think the Washington is going to want to risk the enthusiasm, the momentum that is kind of building in Washington. But I also think that, as Turbo just mentioned, that without him, then Jaden Daniels may take a step back, and that we're talking about the division that has the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champs. Dallas Cowboys, I'm expecting a little bit of a bounce back if they return to health this upcoming year. As far as going back to your question, Chris, I think the team that jumped out to me immediately was the San Francisco 49ers. They've had their own injury issues. Juwan Jennings is struggling with injury. And, of course, Deebo Samuel is now a member of those Washington Commanders. Look, Deebo Samuel at his best is still a very, very good player, but he's, unfortunately for Deebo and now the Washington Commanders, he is rarely at his best. So I think that they are still a team. I love what Brandon Ayuk brings as a playmaker, but I think that they could be a team that is a little bit more of like, hey, this is our opportunity to win right now. I just don't think that they have the salary cap flexibility to be able to pull it off. You think about the Los Angeles Rams, obviously lost Cooper Kupp, but brought in Devontae Adams.
Right.
The Arizona Cardinals are expecting big things out of their draft pick 2 years ago, Marvin Harrison Jr., to bounce up and have a big-time, spectacular sophomore season in the NFL. So I just don't see a fit in the NFC West, which is exactly why it will probably wind up.
No, but you know what? The Cardinals make the most sense, though, in terms of the NFC West. The Cardinals, because who are they paying on offense besides Kyler Murray? Big money.
Yeah.
James Conner's getting decent money as a running back, but the backup is on a rookie contract. Marvin Harrison Jr. is on a rookie contract. And I believe Trey McBride, he might have just gotten a deal this offseason. We can look that up. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if not, he'd probably still be on a rookie deal too. And so you can want to turn in terms of, cap flexibility potentially.
Sure.
The Cardinals make the most sense in terms of being able to afford a Terry McLaurin, to answer your question, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like looking at that wide receiver depth chart as well, all due respect to Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, the names behind that leave a little bit to be desired. So maybe that could be a fit, but ultimately Nostradamus Chris is probably wrong about the Steelers, and he's just going to end up being a Commander, but it will be a fun one to watch. Ultimately, though, I think we all agree that this probably isn't a fit for the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for watching. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Again, we're doing 2 shows a week. We'll have the preseason game and also one show before those preseason games on Tuesday. Just really appreciate the support. This has been a blast. Really appreciate Turbo. Really appreciate Rob Rank for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and we will catch you next week.